Today we've got Justin from Killswitch Engage. Super stoked about this, Justin. Like as soon as I saw that you all were releasing an album, and then we got a press release about, hey, like, do you want to interview Killswitch? I'm like, we have to jump on this opportunity because this feels like a once in a lifetime type of thing. Killswitch is obviously a band that we have either known about or have been listening to for quite some time, and I mean, at least probably maybe close to 20 years, Cullen, maybe
Yeah,
at least 15 years for
yeah.
both of us, maybe close to 20 years at this point. So you don't know this, Justin, but like we know about you. We've known about you for a very long time. I know you're just meeting us for the first time, but and maybe that's a weird thing for you in your life where like you might meet people that like know of you or know about you for a very long time and you're just meeting them for the first time. But we are one of those people. We've known about you. We've been listening to you for a long time, and you're just meeting us. So anyway, all that said, how are you doing today?
Well, first of all, I'm sorry that you got stuck with me because I'm sure that
No,
the pecking order would be one of either
we prefer you. We
Jesse
prefer you.
Adam, probably Mike Joel, uh, Howard, uh, Joshy, our longtime tech, Joel's mom,
Phil
and
Labonte.
and then maybe me. So
No,
We're,
no.
honestly, if you knew anything about Cullen, especially, I can assure you, you actually might be like, if you're not number one on the pecking order, you certainly are number two.
This is true.
all right, well that's a very rare list, but I'll go with it. I'm very happy to hear
Well,
that.
do you want to know? Do you want to know why that's the case?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Well, obviously your drumming skills, they speak for themselves, but I remember from the Holy Diver video you guys did, uh, your role in that was the best. I mean, it's legendary. It's burned into my mind. When I think of Killswitch Engage, I don't think of anything else first, but you sitting on that throne. So
Well, that's good. That's
yeah.
that's good. I'm glad that a cover song is the first thing to
Well, not necessarily the
pick
song in
this.
particular. It's the image of you on the throne that does it first for me.
No, I
So
understand. What did Mel Brooks say? It's good to be the king.
it's
Right.
good to be the king. Yeah. Yeah. God, that's a great movie.
Sound like Simba.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, something
Right.
like that.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about just how you got into music first. Before we even get into Killswitch Engage, because I do know there's like a little bit of a history before you even get into Killswitch. So yeah, I'd love to just hear maybe even like at the beginning. I mean, I always think of every drummer. Anytime we interview a drummer, I always think like at some point they were banging on some pots and pans that just annoyed the hell out of their parents. Maybe that was your story, maybe it wasn't. But I'm just curious, like, what even got you remotely interested in pounding some things to make some noise? And before you know it, now it's made a whole career for you.
A little hard to remember since it's 100 years ago at this point.
Let's
But
let's just say maybe you had some hair on your head when you
yeah,
started it.
some fleeting hair. Yeah, it was a long time ago. I was always sort of liked music. I played viola was my first instrument
Oh,
when I
hell yeah.
was in fourth grade, maybe, and then quickly switched to trumpet. And I played trumpet till eighth grade, I believe, something around then. And yeah, I think I was about 13 when I really started to have an interest in drumming and really like the drums. I don't know why. I kind of think maybe some of it was because it was like a physical thing. I was way into sports, so I was playing in soccer all the time, and I think that drumming almost felt like running in a way,
Mm.
especially with double
It
bass.
is probably the one instrument where if you're playing it, it probably burns the most calories, I would imagine,
Which
right?
is funny because you're sitting down the whole time. It's about the best workout you could have sitting down, metal drumming,
That's
probably.
true.
And you're
Fair
just
enough, yeah.
sitting and flailing. But I actually sold my trumpet for my first double bass pedal. Um,
Oh, nice.
Ooh.
so that's kind of how the, I guess, musical lineage goes.
Well, that's
And
interesting
yeah,
because like you kind of delved into a whole bunch of different genres right away. So was heavier music pretty early on for you, or were you more interested in other stuff?
I think it was pretty early on. I remember getting into, I guess, classic rock would have been the gateway to it, into metal. Getting into Zeppelin was first, as so many drummers, and
Sure.
then Rush was next as also, and it's such a ridiculously cliched list of drummers. But then
What I
getting
love about you describing that as classic rock, which obviously it is, but it's so funny how like the time range of what classic rock now, it's like moved so much
yeah,
where now they're like, I think I've even heard people say that Mr. Brightside is being played on classic rock stations.
probably.
Like that's but we also like think about like when Mr. Brightside first came out, what is that, 2004? Like if you think that was 20 years, like 20 years ago from Mr. Brightside, 20 years from Mr. Brightside would have been 1984, which would have been, that's probably when people would have considered some of that classic rock. So it's
Yeah,
funny how much like that like that range is constantly moving of what we would think of as classic rock.
Yeah.
it's all
End of Heartache.
crazy.
I just heard End of Heartache on classic rock radio.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. Oh, I was going to say, so I mentioned Zeppelin. It was probably 80, like what did I say? It was 13. So yeah, so 89, 90 is when I basically started playing drums, right? And I'm saying Zeppelin, right?
Yeah.
Their last show was in 1980 or something. So it's 9 years. It's been 9 years since our last record. And now those 9 years was classic rock then. So it's all the time periods it's so much different. I mean, bands would put out 2 records a year back then. So it's
True.
just all
Yeah,
everything
that's
is
true.
it's I don't know. The time frames have just all become so different. It's hard to know what's going
Yeah.
on.
Man, speaking of that, what would happen if Metal Blade came to you and said, "Hey, we need 2 records a year for the next 4 years"?
You guys,
Bye.
we're done.
Say
Or
goodbye.
you're gonna get some really bad records.
One of them's gonna one of those things is gonna happen.
We might be able to give you a good song or two, but there's gonna be a lot of garbage in there. So have fun with that.
Yeah, it's
I do love that your music origin story does, to some degree, start with the trumpet. And then, especially knowing your jazz influence, it's kind of funny that, that in an alternative Justin music realm, you could have easily become just like another Midwest emo drummer.
true.
Ah, that's funny. I sort of remembered being in like a jazz band with trumpet, and then the jazz like rehearsal would end, and I'd just go over to the drum set and noodle a little bit, and that was kind of where I really started playing. And then there was a friend that I had that had a drum set, and I was friends with him, and then I went over to his house. I started playing his drum set, and then I went over to his house more with the only reason because I wanted to play his drum set. I didn't really like him anymore, but I wanted to go over and play his drum set. But I do remember him playing. Again, it must have been Kill 'Em All. The first time I heard Metallica was at his house, so that was pretty cool.
Hell yeah. So from your perspective, especially since you didn't start 100% on the drums, I've always heard drummers say that they view their drumming as like a linear thing. Like when they see it in their head, they view it as a linear kind of process. Whereas people who are guitarists or maybe trumpeters or maybe was it violists? Is that how you'd say
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
Yeah,
The fat
maybe the
violin.
violist. Yeah, right. Uh, they say it's almost like a pile of noodles. You don't really know where you're going to end up in that stack of noodles, right? Is that does that resonate with you at all, or do you just not even think about that at all?
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about at all. That doesn't make any sense. Yeah, I don't
That's
know.
funny.
I don't know how I see it. I feel like I'm playing a lot more guitar now than I ever played before, and it's just sort of feels like it all kind of feels like music. I don't know how to describe the difference. I
Sure,
think guitar is just as rhythmical as drumming, and I think
sure,
drumming can be in a weird way as lyrical as pitched instruments too. Um, and I think some of that probably is from when I ended up going to school for music and I was playing all the mallet instruments like the marimba and xylophone and
sure.
vibraphone and all that stuff. And it was kind of a really nice, and the piano is like that too. It's like a really nice combination of the um, striking something like percussively and
Yeah,
also getting all the melodic musical satisfaction from it too.
Cool. I really appreciate that perspective because I know you've done some work outside of like the heavy music world, maybe more in like the more classical world, even
Yeah, many lifetimes ago. Yes.
many lifetimes ago. You say, all right. Well, it is kind of funny to me because I feel like a lot of that kind of comes through in your drumming as well. It feels very musical, you know. It doesn't feel like it's simply there to hold a rhythm or to hold a beat or whatever. It feels like there's a lot of intentionality about, you know, where you want to add accents and all that stuff. And I I think that really sticks out to most listeners, even though they might not right away understand that.
Thanks. I definitely shoot for that, especially when it comes to something like cymbal textures. I have three crash cymbals on my setup, and there's a hi-hat and there's the ride, obviously. And I'm always thinking about when the song has its moments, which cymbal texture I'm going to have at certain moments, and saving the biggest one and the most emphatic one for like the biggest part of the song. And I'm always trying to think that way. So that's
Yeah,
probably where some of that comes into play.
that's cool.
Hmm.
I really dig that. I really, really dig that.
Yeah, I've always thought that some of the best drummers, even especially in like heavy music, have maybe some level of whether it's either maybe like jazz training or like classical training, but there's some other very non-heavy music training that I think really just gives a lot of texture or dynamic to their drumming when it's translated into like heavy music. It just gives so much more dynamic and texture that you wouldn't maybe otherwise hear if somebody just like has only ever known heavy drumming. And so I've always really appreciated drummers that have a little bit of like this kind of nuance or like a different influence from their introduction into drumming that you know obviously end up falling into heavy drumming. But yeah, I don't, maybe you have something to say around that, but I've always thought that seems to be something that I've really appreciated about certain kind of drummers that have the same kind of maybe experience of both like jazz or classical training.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think it can work in the other genres too, very similar to that,
Mm.
or somebody that's maybe somebody that's a jazz player that also has dabbled in heavier music and can do some cool double bass thing and some kind of jazz part would be a really cool thing to hear too. So I think it can, cross over in a whole bunch of different ways and be pretty
Yeah.
interesting.
As somebody who again like has the experience in lots of different kinds of genres, you know, for the average listener who, you know, right now may be listening to some classical music or some jazz music, you know, especially right now where, you know, Christmas time. So there's kind of like fun, Christmassy, jazzy kind of stuff going on. And they're listening to that. And then they would maybe be introduced to Killswitch Engage, for example. They're probably like, this is like, how is this even, this is both music, right? Like there is just such a difference there. But I'm wondering for like your perspective of somebody who's played both, like do you just think like all of this is just music and it's just the only thing that's making the difference is like how hard I'm hitting my cymbals and my snare and stuff, or like I'm just curious like for you like how different does it feel to play something as heavy as metalcore versus something like classical music or just like a nice little jazz tune or whatever. I'm curious like what that difference for you feels like as a actual player of the music rather than like a listener of the music that might not be super well versed in both kind of genres.
Right. I think like I think if Stravinsky had access to like a Marshall 800, he would have written sick riffs. Like I really think he would have been in a metal band. Shostakovich would have had like beat down. He would have been in a beat down hardcore band for sure. I think it's what the tools you have at the same time. Like I see a lot of similarities in how stuff like that can make you feel and stuff like now. And it's just kind of like almost like just different tools at your disposal.
Yeah. That's totally true.
I
If you
I
were
really think that. I think Shostakovich would have been like the most badass band. And you would
yeah,
have people killing each other in the pits.
like let's say we throw you into rural India right now and all you have is a tabla and you have to figure out how you're going to like meld your way into that, that kind of genre, that Eastern rhythmic sense and all that stuff. How long do you
That's
think it'd take you?
so, oh man, so hard. I mean, Pablo is like, I don't know very much about it at all. I'm not pretending that I do. One thing I do know is that the difference in the tone you get from your finger being in one spot and being like a quarter of an inch in another spot is
Huge
just
difference.
such a huge difference. And it's just such
Yeah.
a crazy instrument to master. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and on top of that, I mean, just completely strange rhythmic patterns compared to our
Yeah.
Western ears.
Tonic too, like notes between half steps and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, that
Yeah.
tabla, like hitting something that precise, and I have a tom in front of me that I miss sometimes. I mean, like that big. Crazy.
It's a good point. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I suppose there are some similarities in that though, too, because if you hit, closer to the rim, you're going to get a very different sound than if you hit right dead center, right?
But it doesn't matter in the slightest when when
I
you're
suppose
in
if
yeah,
you're
when
in
you're
a
in a venue
Killswitch
and I'm
Engage.
playing something like this and I'm swinging from here and no one cares. No one's like, oh, I'm going home. You missed the tom on that hit.
It's a good point.
You hit it hard enough, it's all gonna sound the same.
Yeah, it really is.
So let's take it back a step again. What was your introduction into Killswitch? I don't know if this is a story I've ever read or heard about. How did you get into Killswitch? How did you meet the guys?
I've been
2003, right? Is when you came
Yeah,
in? Okay.
2003. So in 2001, I started playing with Blood Has Shed. So I was in that band with Howard. And in 2002, Howard joined Killswitch. So, I was in Blood Has Shed with Howard. Howard was also doing double duty with Killswitch. And, sometime in 2003, they were going to need somebody to play drums. And I knew Howard for the last couple of years, playing Blood Has Shed with him. And he was basically just like, told the other guys, hey, I got somebody that can do it. And they were like, sure, whatever. Like, I don't think they put any thought into it. And they were just like, yeah, he can play drums. So, I just listened, I just learned everything. And then when I played with them, and then I went and I played with them again, and then we just went on tour. And that was it. It wasn't like they had some kind of search for a drummer. There's none of that. It was just like they were just like, sure, whatever, he's fine. And then by then I
It
was
was the
in too deep
beard.
and they couldn't get rid of me. Oh,
Yeah.
there was no beard back then. It was actually
Oh, I
just hair
suppose.
here
Yeah.
and there was no beard.
Everything
Yeah.
got switched probably
Everything fell.
through the years.
They knew
You
your
know,
potential. We'll say that.
even Joel didn't have it. None of us had beards. I remember when we all grew beards for the first time, and it was in 2004 on the Jaeger tour that we did with Slayer, and we all grew beards. And we did it because we watched the Family Guy episode where Peter grows a beard and all thought that was funny, and then we decided to grow beards.
So it's because of Family Guy.
Yeah,
That's wild.
and
What
Joel and I have never quit.
that seems so Killswitch Engage to me. That a Family Guy joke.
Goofy and stupid. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I love it though, because all of your personalities are kind of goofy, which I appreciate, and the music
They're
is
all very different.
Yeah. Well, and I would all say pretty goofy as well. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
throughout
With
all of the interviews and everything I've watched and all that, you guys don't take yourself too seriously, which I appreciate.
Yeah, we like to have fun. We want everybody to have fun. That's our main goal for shows is everybody to have a fun time. That's pretty much it. I mean, we're obviously serious about when it comes writing time,
Yeah.
but when it comes to going out there and on having a show, we just want it to be a fun time.
Yeah, I dig it. I have this kind of personal theory. I don't know if there's any truth to this. Maybe listeners will find some truth. Maybe you'll find some truth. Hopefully you do. I've always felt like Killswitch Engage kind of rides this really interesting line because you're unabashedly you. Some of you are a little older than maybe other people in the scene, and I think that lends some credence to maybe some certain songwriting styles and to an attitude, which I think is really cool. But it's almost like you guys follow this line where, early 2000s, mid 2000s, whatever it is, you guys were in the scene. Like, you guys were blowing up one of the biggest bands on the planet, at least in the metal world. And as time goes on, you know, there's a lot of bands that try to copy you, and they try to take the melodic metalcore or melodic heavy metal kind of sound, right? And they try to replicate what you've done, and none of them do it quite the same way. And then you get some bastardized version of it with some what I would call butt rock, who I think really did try to steal from Killswitch, but no one can quite do it. So Killswitch kind of rides this line where it's for everybody, but it's not just for everybody in that it's like mass market. What I'm saying is that it's for everybody and everyone can appreciate it, but it's not corny and it's not butt rocky and it's not like too far into the scene that it's like, you know, stick your nose up at everyone. It rides this perfect line that I can't think of more than maybe 3 bands are capable of doing in the heavy music scene. Any thoughts on that?
Thanks. Yeah, I don't know. It's got to be where I don't know. I don't really know. We came from. I mean, you kind of mentioned us being a little older, which obviously we are. I mean, this year was like the 25th anniversary of the band, so you know you don't get to a number like that without just being old. Just the way it works. You know, even if you started the band when you were 12, you're still middle aged. That's why, which is old when you think of aggressive and heavy music. But yeah, I mean, we just all came from the same New England hardcore scene in the 90s where it was just kind of super experimental and bands could be themselves and bands can be different. It was really great thing. And we all just sort of kept whatever mentality that we had from then with the band, you know. We didn't, I mean, I can't say because I wasn't there, but I know that they didn't start the band to try to do something else other than just do another band in that scene.
Mm.
It wasn't like they had grander, like, oh, this will be the one that will get us to play bigger shows. It wasn't that at all. It was just like, oh, hey, let's play together. And then that's kind of how it happened the same way. So we just kind of all try to keep those roots, I suppose, in the band. Part of that is still, you know, playing without any tracks or without a click or whatever live. And it's just like when you see us live, it's the 5 of us just out there playing.
You guys don't use a click live?
No, no. So for better or
Whoa.
for worse, some shows,
Dude,
you know, are all over the place. You know, sometimes I could be rushing the shit out of songs, and other times everything's fine. So, but I
that's
think,
big
you know,
time cred, man. That's big time cred.
I think it's like I think it adds a lot to the show because it
Yeah.
makes it a little different, makes it exciting or whatever. And I think you can kind of notice that. But yeah, I don't know what to say. For whatever reason, it's worked out, and we just try to keep that mentality and just try to keep going as we've always done it. Only real way we know how to do it, I suppose.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, and that brings you to today. I mean, this consequence is I haven't heard the whole record yet, and not a lot of people have. Um, but you know, the song we've got so far is killer, and it's right in line with exactly what I want to hear from Killswitch. It's not too formulaic. It's super dynamic. It's got great singing, great screaming, great drumming, great guitars. I mean, it's great production. Mason has something to say about the production, but it's it's uh it's so great to just it's like comfort food. I come back to it over and over and over again, and it's been too long since the last record, and I'm
Yeah, it's
just
been a
happy to go back for my favorite comfort food again.
bit. I mean, yeah, at this point we know, I mean, we know what we do. But we also don't want to just keep doing the same thing over and over again. You know, nobody wants to do
Yeah,
that. So I think we took we took some risks on the album. I'm sure when you hear the whole thing, you'll hear a couple songs that might stand out a little differently, which is great though. I'm glad that we're doing that. I would hate to do an album of, you know, 12 uh standard cookie cutter
Right.
Killswitch sounding songs. None of us want to do that at all.
Yeah.
We want to write music that makes us happy, that we have to go out and play for people and play believingly, or make people believe that we are enjoying what we're doing playing.
Right.
So that's what we do. If there's something we don't like or we're not going to get behind, then we don't do it.
Well, for you personally, obviously you can't speak to all the members in the band, but for you personally, like what's maybe the sound or arrangement, or I'm really curious, like what is it that you would like for maybe like a Killswitch song to sound like? Like if you had your way, let's say you like the rest of the band was like, okay, you get to decide how this song sounds. What is that song going to sound like? And how does it sound differently than whatever the classic Killswitch Engage sound sounds like? But I'm just really curious, like for you, if you had your way in deciding how things sound like, how things are written and all of that, I'm curious, like what is it for you that you would love to hear?
That's funny because how you were talking about bands that sort of sound like the way we sound. I feel like when I sit down and if I try to think to myself, okay, I have to write a Killswitch demo or something, I feel like my end product sounds like that. It sounds like a cheap knockoff or something. That and I don't want to send it. I'm like, oh, that's no good. But if I come up with something that just sounds that's like a little different or a little weirder, and then I send it out and I'm like, hey guys, here's my idea of what might be a cool song, make it better. Or like, here's kind of a riff that I can play really poorly. Guys, play it better, like that kind of thing. Um, then I think some of the stuff that has been on at least the last few records kind of sound a little weird, or like some of the little maybe tracks that are just a little different sounding, which I think might be the case on this one too. But apart from that, from what you're asking, more direct answer, something that's just super aggressive and super melodic is really all I want to hear
Mm.
in our music. Like I want it to have high energy, and I want it to be catchy and in a hook and some kind of like, whether the hook is the vocal part or whether the hook is a lead or something, you want to have something like that, and you want it to be driving and you want it to be aggressive and not necessarily predictable either, even if it's just like subtle unpredictability. But you can predict, okay, now they're going to go to the bridge or now they're going to go to the last chorus, whatever, that's fine. But unpredictable textures within that, like some other overdub that is like a very um, strange overdub for that part, or even strange chords or strange dissonances that are over it, like things like that, I think make for something a lot more interesting. So I would say the ideal song would try to have a lot of those elements kind of combined together.
Yeah. I think that's what gets you coming back, right? As a listener, that's what makes you want to come back. It's not,
I guess,
it's
yeah,
not the same thing over and over again. Right.
I guess that's what makes me come back to things that I listen to. So
Yeah.
that's what you
Yeah.
want in your own thing, I suppose.
So you were talking about how you bring some riffs to the band. How often do you do things outside of drumming in the band?
A lot more lately. I don't know if you guys know, I started another instrumental band where I play guitar. So
Yeah.
I'm working on that a lot more too, which is super fun and super embarrassing to realize that I've been in bands with guitar players for forever, and I didn't even bother to know the first thing about like how different pickups in a guitar are different. Like I'm learning all these stupid things I should have learned 30 years ago. So it's a lot of fun.
What's other than the pickups? What's been the one thing where you're like, how the hell did I not know this?
Good question. Other than that one, because that one's pretty stupid.
That is pretty stupid, but I am curious in the other ones.
um, I mean, I guess some of it is just realizing how annoying having to deal with electronics is.
Oh yeah, I can
Oh yeah.
totally see that.
as a drummer, I just hit a thing and it makes a sound, and it's like, cool, I'm done. That's what I got to do. There's nothing, there's no mystery. If it doesn't make a sound, then there's almost no way for it to not make a sound.
Right.
But when you have your pedal board and you have your amp and you have your head and you have a guitar and something's not working and you have 10 billion things to try to figure out to get to the source of it. And like, why did I sign up to do this? It's so much easier the other way.
Has playing guitar both for the instrumental band and also, I mean, it sounds like you're maybe writing to some degree some maybe riffs or at least some ideas for Killswitch. How much of just playing guitar has maybe influenced, not necessarily made you like make you play drumming differently, but to some degree, I would imagine like it at least influences you to like maybe think about songwriting differently as a drummer or what. But I'm just curious, like what is it about for you as a drummer that playing guitar has maybe influenced or changed or shaped a little bit?
Oh, I mean, absolutely, a million percent. Just
Oh wow.
actually standing in a room with a different instrument and having it turned up and playing with somebody else playing drums, and just even the dynamic of listening to that and fitting in like playing together. It's all like no matter what it is, if it's a metal band or orchestra or a string quartet or a jazz ensemble, you're always listening, and that's the same through any style. You're always listening as you're playing. So I've always been listening from sitting in the drummer's chair, and so listening the other way as standing in guitar, it's like it's completely, yeah, there's a lot of things. I notice real subtle tempo changes a lot more when you're holding this than when you're playing drums, and when it's an adrenaline fueled tempo change, like because again we're not on a click. I now understand so much better how that's more noticeable to all the other guys than it ever was for me. And it's
Mm.
something I never got before. But now that I'm on the receiving end of it, it's like a totally different thing. So it's just been me. That's one of the biggest ones I've become more sensitive to, having that other perspective.
That makes sense. How do you pronounce the new band name?
Libika.
Libica. Okay. That's what I thought, but I didn't want to sound like an idiot and be like Libica or
No,
something
it's
like
fine.
that. So
That's
cool.
whatever. It's fine.
Cool. Yeah.
Cat's
Well,
being the band,
Mason and I
basically.
are big fans of instrumental bands as well, especially post rock music,
Me too.
um,
Love it.
like Russian Circles and Mono and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So we're pretty excited about Libica as well. So I'm glad that was
Caspian's
the
one of
other
my
reason that you were.
favorites. Like a huge fan.
Which one?
Caspian, sort of my absolute
Caspian's so good.
favorites.
Yeah.
Oh,
Love them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Outrageously good.
Yeah. Lots and lots of fun. So we really appreciate that kind of music as well, and that's why you were also on the top of the list for the Killswitch Engage members. We'd love to have on. Lots and lots of.
Well, I think also the fact that like I mean maybe it's redundant to say, but also it does seem like there is a huge overlap between especially like bands like Killswitch, but just like generally metal music, and especially like like a lot of the post or like at least post rock stuff that we're into. Like I remember Cullen and I a few years ago we went to a Surgros show, and the people in front of us were like, because we mentioned like, oh yeah, we're big Surgos fans, and somehow in conversation they were like, actually, we really don't listen to this kind of music. We're actually way more into metal, but for whatever reason, Surgos just like really gets us going, and Cullen and I were like, oh, it's kind of us too a little bit too. So I do think there is like some overlap there around post rock and metal, and maybe it's just like song arrangements, or maybe you have your own theory around that, Justin. But
Dude,
yeah, anyway, there definitely seems to be some sort of overlap.
so when we were driving to this, Adam and I were driving to the studio to record, and one of the days to do drum tracks for End of Heartache. And Adam said, "Do you want to hear what the end of the world sounds like?" And he played uh, the Untitled 8 from the Parentheses record.
Yeah.
Mm,
And tell me that's not the heaviest thing in the entire world. Like it
so
is.
heavy.
I mean, it just is. And it's the first time I heard it, and I was floored. So yeah, of course. I mean, it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be a palm muted chug to be heavy. Like
That's
Cigarettes
right.
is insanely heavy, like
Yeah.
outrageously heavy.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember.
Honestly, seriously, like one of the loudest shows I've ever been to. Like that,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe
Yeah,
I don't know if there are other shows that are like that, but my goodness,
so
that
full.
show was so loud. I mean, louder than some metal shows I've been to.
Yeah. The only
I
other
think
moment I could.
Mogwai was the loudest show I've ever been
That's what I
to.
was just going to
Yes,
say.
exactly. Mogwai,
Yeah.
100% the loudest show I've ever
That
been
was
to.
Yeah.
the thing I was going to say. Like the end of the world feeling, where it's like, wow, that it really is impending doom. There is
Yeah.
Fear Satan. Like when they close
Yeah.
out with that, and you're just
Oh my God.
anticipating that big blow up after they turn all the lights back on.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa, man, it's hard to compare it, right?
Right. Yeah.
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 There's something fun. One of the fun things about um, writing for Live is you don't have to worry about leaving room for vocals, and you can
Yeah.
just get ridiculous with all the parts and all the build ups and everything, and you don't have to worry about covering up something that's gonna eventually be there. There's nothing
Yeah.
else is gonna be there, so you can just run wild with it, and it's really fun.
Yeah. The possibilities are endless. And I got to imagine that's just really freeing from your perspective.
Yeah, it's cool. It's
Yeah.
it's very cool.
Yeah. Any thoughts about potentially wanting to be a drummer in an instrumental band like that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, absolutely. If any of those bands need drummers, yeah,
All
I'm
right,
game.
we'll throw your resume out there.
Thanks. Please do.
I know we want eventually to get to the your top 5 albums, but one other question I have that isn't really exactly this new album kind of type of question, but it is a question that has come up in my mind as we're chatting, mostly because I'm realizing that Cullen and I have interviewed hundreds of bands on this podcast. I don't know if we've ever interviewed a band where they started out with a singer, moved on to a different singer for an entire like album cycle of like different albums,
Number of albums,
and
10
then
years.
moved back to the same original singer.
Yeah.
Like that is, I don't know if we've ever interviewed a band that has gone through that kind of transition. And so I'm just curious for you, like, I mean, I know you got involved with Killswitch because of Howard, but yeah, I'm just curious, like, what was it like? And I would imagine, like, you weren't a part of the band right when Jesse was still around at the beginning. But I'm just curious, like, what has that dynamic been like to go from the original singer to a new singer, and that new singer was there for like what 10 years or whatever,
Yeah.
and then to like go back to the original singer? Like that's got to be an interesting history for you personally to be involved with. So I'm just curious, what was that something that was interesting? What was there like odd parts of that? I'm just curious, like what was that experience like just for you?
Yeah, it was. I mean, there's a million different emotions in it for sure, for so many reasons. But one of the interesting things when uh, we like the first few times that I ever played with Jesse was you had mentioned Phil was on with when we did the tour when Phil was filling in,
Yeah.
and we did a few shows at the end of it where Jesse did some songs, and it was really fun, and I felt kind of like a fan because even though these were songs that I'd played with, all the other guys in Howard, now I was playing with, all the other guys in Jesse, and it was like it was super duper fun. Hold on, I got a guest.
Oh, what a cutie.
This is Velma. Velma's wanted to come in
Velma.
for a little bit.
Did she lose her
Jinkies.
glasses?
So yeah, and it's been interesting too because Howard was doing when I joined, especially that first tour, Howard was doing all songs, all Jesse songs, because Heartache hadn't come out yet, except Darkness Falls. That was the one song that
Sure.
that they wrote before that came out. But he was doing, he's doing all Jesse songs. And then when Jesse returned, we were obviously doing a whole bunch of songs from the Howard records. So I don't know, and they both have a very similar energy and like especially live, they both have such a great live presence and everything. Yeah, it's just I don't feel like there's been any kind of drop. It's always felt
Right.
right when we were working with both of them, really. Yeah, I don't know if that's a good answer or not. I
Yeah.
probably got
From the fan
very distracted.
perspective, I didn't feel like there was any drop, but I mean, it felt like you guys were just picking up right where Howard passed the torch. It's I was expecting something different. I'll say that. I was expecting it to go a completely different direction, and it didn't. It was super high quality. It felt like there was tons of energy. Songwriting was still great.
That was a super, like, we wanted to rip on that record when we were writing. Like we were sort of it was just a weird transitional time, and we just wanted to put out something that was like ripping. Will you shut up? She's yelling at me. We just we just wanted to put out something that was just like, fast. We wanted to go. I remember Adam was saying he just wanted to Ricky Bobby that whole record, and just, I want to go fast like the whole time.
Okay, speaking of Adam, I do have to ask this.
Sure.
My first introduction to Adam, so Cullen and I grew up in like the solid state world, all of that. So I'm a huge Underoath fan. So my first introduction to Adam wasn't actually through Killswitch; it was through Underoath, with him producing "Define the Great Line."
That record is incredible, by the way.
Yeah.
I love that record.
Yeah.
Unbelievable record, rightfully so. So that was my first, and I remember like as a kid watching the DVD of Matt Goldman and Adam working on that album. And so that was my first introduction to Adam. Just like meeting you virtually for the first time here, like I can't imagine two different personalities. And maybe Adam is like different now in his 40s, but like you guys just seem like you're so calculated and calm and collected. And Adam just seems to me like youth pastor energy of just like look at me, everyone. Like he totally has that energy. So it's so funny to think like you guys just seem personality wise so different. And again, maybe Adam's different now, but I'm just curious, like what has it been like to be in a band with Adam? Because it does seem, at least just from the outside, that you guys might have very different personalities.
Well, in some ways, yes, he's definitely pretty outgoing. I'm extremely uncomfortable talking to people that I don't know. He has no problem with that. But he is obviously kind of putting on a little bit. Like he's not, when you're just sitting around, he's not at level 10 Adam crazy or anything. Like he's and then musically in general, the band musically thinks very similarly. We all have outlying stuff that we're into that other people might not be into, but we think along the same lines when it comes to the grand scheme of things musically. And I think that me and him, and he and Joel, and me and him, and kind of the three of us have very similar tastes in a lot of the melodic side of music for sure. So we have, in that way, I think we're very similar. But yeah, that record, I know his fingerprints are all over that record, and it sounds great. Like that last song, that ending, that fade out of the last song is like, it's just so good. And I feel like I listen to it, I'm like, yeah, I know the guy that produced that.
Yeah,
that's cool. I get to be in a band with the guy that knows that is awesome, and that just gets it. Like it's a cool feeling,
What I love about, well, not just that album, but just I think is indicative of Adam is, and you would see this like if you watch the DVD or the kind of documentary of them making that album with him, is he is so anal about like we have to get this right in order for it to be the success that it should be. And especially now with the technology that bands have these days, like they can skip a few steps to just like get to that level of like kind of production. But Adam is so like, no, we're gonna make this like this is actually going to come out of your guitar. We're not going to just input this into a computer. This is actually going to come out of your guitar, but we're going to make this come out of your guitar, and you're going to play this so well that it's going to sound like it came out of a computer. Like that's what I love about, like he just has this like intensity about we're gonna make this perfect. And you can even see like the guys from Under Oath are like, oh god, like we're just having to do over and over and over, we're gonna have to do the same thing.
Yeah.
But it's because Adam is so anal about we have to make this perfect. And fortunately it ended up coming out sounding perfect, and fortunately people recognized it, where it got the success that it did. But I just love that about that album. And I hear that in Killswitch stuff, right? Like
Definitely.
you hear this kind of level of attention around, we're not going to just like fake this with a fake guitar or a fake drum. We're going to make this sound perfect, but not perfect in a way where it's just another computer program thing or whatever. We're going to make it sound perfect from an actual instrument.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about Adam's production. And again, you hear that obviously on that album, but you hear that, I think, in every Killswitch album.
Yeah, he goes too far.
You were waiting to say that for the entire time that Mason was talking. That's great.
Now, human perfect. Yeah, it's human perfect. It's difficult. It's hard to tracking is not easy. Like absolutely.
Yeah.
Tracking is not easy.
Do you use a click while you track?
Yes. Oh my God, yes.
Okay, I was gonna say
yeah.
that'd be nuts.
Adam would yeah, absolutely. And he hears details that I don't think most people hear. It's kind of like it's funny, I would run through a take, and he used to always, the first thing he would always ask would be like, how'd that feel? And at first I would answer, I'd be like, I felt really good. And you'd go, no. And then eventually got to the point where he would say, how'd that feel? And I would say, I don't know. You got to tell me, because I'm not sure. It felt okay, but I don't know anymore. And now he just doesn't even ask me anymore. He's just like, yeah, it's either the next thing or do it again.
Yeah.
It's just hard. It's so what he's hearing is just it's on another level that I don't think most people hear.
How do you get to a point where you don't take that personally? I could feel for myself where I'm like, God, I felt like that was great, and you're thinking this is shit, or it's not worthwhile, and like that's gotta like just personally feel like a little bit of a sting. Like at some point you just got to be to a point where it's like, all right, well that's just Adam being Adam, and I'm just gonna have to do this again.
That's a good question. I don't think I guess I don't take it personally. I don't think
Does it still sting?
I don't think he's personally attacking me. I just think I'm terrible at playing drums. I think I have no business being a drummer, and that my hands and feet will never, ever, ever line up, no matter what I do. So that's not really
in those moments. Like, but at some point you got to realize, like, okay, you're a damn good drummer. So like you got to feel that, right?
It's not during recording sessions.
So Adam makes you like Adam to me, again, I don't know him at all, but like just what I'm hearing, he feels like the coach that just is like on the line again. Like you're just
well, he's James Brown talking to his band. I don't know if you guys know the story about James Brown, but he was notorious for just like actually like physically abusing his bandmates that didn't hit everything.
I don't know if Adam gets to that point.
No. And he knows how to.
That's because he knows not to mess with Justin.
He knows how to handle different personalities now, and he's definitely a lot more diplomatic about producing and nudging people into getting better performances for sure.
Good call.
But yes,
does he still shit his pants?
Probably. Yeah, probably. I mean, I think the older we get, we're just going to keep doing it more, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
He was doing it. I don't know how old he was when he was recording Define the Great Line, but that seems pretty young to be already shitting your pants.
Well, it's not going to get any better. It's all downhill.
Oh man.
All right. Well, you love Define the Great Line. We love Killswitch Engage. All right, Justin, what are your top 5 most influential albums?
So influential, right? Not necessarily favorite.
Not necessarily favorite.
Just influential. So
correct.
I'd have to say I'm gonna try to dip into most of the stuff that was influential, like early years influential, I would say, to try, because obviously there's stuff today that's influential, but I think I'm gonna go influential, like becoming a musician influential.
Great.
Love it. Let's hear it.
I would say Rush Hemispheres is
Oh,
a
yes.
gigantic
Yes.
one. All of Rush albums, of course, but the Hemispheres one, for whatever
Right.
reason, I was just getting like off the charts proggy. And it's
You
funny
know,
because they even all the stuff I've seen, all the documentaries I've seen, they talk about Hemispheres as when they finally went too far. That's probably why I like that record so much because
a
it was
lot of
just
synths
crazy.
on there. Yeah,
Yeah, and they started to get they're blending them so well back then,
they
though. It
were.
was just like it was just such a cool record.
You know, something interesting is that I've always noticed that your kit is pretty sparse in the metal world today. And then I think of Neil Peart, and I'm like, well, that's like the opposite. But the fact that he's still your, one of your idols there too that's pretty cool.
I used to have a big one though. I mean, when I was playing, I needed to play the 2112 fill correctly, so I had to have all those toms. I couldn't not do it correctly.
Yeah, it would sound like shit otherwise.
Yeah, so I mean, rototoms are an easy fix for at least some of that. But that was yeah, so that's one. Um, Cynic Focus is another one. Is one
Mm.
of
Oh,
like a crazy record that just kind of took me from being like straight metal and thrash because into like whatever the hell that record is, and it opened up uh, all kinds of other things to listen to. That's a big one.
They definitely do not get enough credit.
Yeah, I mean it's weird. I get it because it's so weird. Like it's such a weird album, but
It
man,
is.
it is just crazy, crazy, crazy. Uh, so I have to include a Zeppelin record, and I'm gonna say Houses of the Holy would be the one that I would include
oh, interesting.
Mm.
because that I mean it has a Rain song on it, which is the greatest song. But it, just in general, the drumming on that is just it's so good. And I can still remember mowing the yard with my Walkman and listening to the song remains the same over and over again and trying to figure out how to play that drum beat. So
Yeah.
when I finished mowing, I would go inside and like maybe be able to get it right, kind of thing. That was like that was a super super big
And
one.
then your dad would come in and be like, "Why are my edges totally fucked up?"
Yeah. I wasn't concentrating on where I was going. I just did one patch like over and over again, and the rest of it. Yeah, but check this out. I finally figured it out. All right, so that's three, right? Candiria, Beyond Reasonable Doubt record would
Mm.
be the fourth one.
Oh,
Because I went to a million Candiria shows, and like every show that they would play in the Northeast, I went to, and watching Ken play drums was just I don't know the word for it. I've never seen another drummer like that guy. So that was a huge one.
Good call.
All right, so I did four old ones. I'll do one recent one,
Okay.
and that would be I just got to go with my favorite record of all time now, which is Radiohead's In Rainbows album.
oh,
Yeah.
God, you are one of us.
The drumming on that album, I think, is the album, in my opinion.
Yeah, that album is. Have you guys listened to the Dissect podcast about that record?
No,
Do
I'm
it.
not.
If you guys like that record, listen to it.
Sick.
It's just a
I will do.
podcast where he goes through track by track, goes through the record, and
Yeah.
it's super cool. A lot of it's kind of musical analysis, which is fun. Some of it's lyrical analysis, which I'm not quite as into, but um, when he does the Reckoner episode, like my brain just completely exploded. Like I couldn't even believe
Um,
it. So that's I highly, highly, highly recommend that if you
when
guys are
I
into that record.
when I discuss the most musical drumming that I've ever heard on any album, that is the first album I always point people to.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to
it's
check out
great.
that podcast because that sounds right up Mason and I's alley. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's cool. Give it a listen, guys. You'll really, really like it. And yeah, the drumming is great. Everything on that is just amazing. And you want to say influential, just tones and just recording and atmosphere. The atmosphere on that record is
Yeah.
unbelievable.
Yeah.
A freaking
It's
Videotape
not
being on the
my
offbeats is crazy. I don't know if you guys heard that there. Like,
videotape.
Nuts.
So good. It's not my favorite Radiohead album. I think Kid A might be my favorite Radiohead album, but what I will grant in Rainbows is it is the best Radiohead album. So it might not necessarily be my favorite, but it is the best one I think that Radiohead has ever done.
in a strange way, I mean, that makes sense. That's
Yeah.
like a thing. Music doesn't have to be logical, but yeah, and how you feel about music doesn't have to be logical, but that makes
Mason,
perfect
Yeah,
sense.
I love bands where like to me there's like three very distinct categories for certain bands where there's the album that was the most influential, the album that is your favorite, and then the album that is the best.
Yeah.
And to me, those sometimes like all three of those could be like intertwined, but then there's some bands, and I think Radiohead's one of them, where for me personally, there is a different album for each three of those categories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's also a fourth
That's fun.
category that Mason and I talk about where it's like there are some bands that have a perfect record where like every single song just somehow meets the bar or the criteria.
And the songs are like in order perfectly.
Yeah. Everything
Yeah.
is just it lines up. It might not even be your favorite, but somehow it just meets such a great level of quality all the way through. We call it a perfect record.
What are some of those that you guys would say?
It's a good question. Mason and I have different ones. For me,
Give me one each.
so for me, I would say One Wing by the Chariot. I'm not sure if you've heard of the Chariot. Is that
I have heard of them, and I'm right now, as you talk to me, I'm going to add it to title, so I will listen to them.
Sick. Yeah, they are they're chaotic and super out of pocket all the time. And that record in general, I think just fits the billing of a perfect record. It's not my favorite record of theirs, but I think it's the perfect record for their catalog. And for Mason and I mean, we sing the praises of the Chariot all the time. Our listeners know this for sure. They're really annoyed by Mason because he finds a way to bring him up in every episode. Well, this episode I brought him up, so there we go. Mason,
Cool.
what was yours?
I do think in terms of a perfect album, "Come Now Sleep" by As Cities Burn.
Yeah.
It's just it's perfectly arranged just in terms of just the songs, the sequencing of the songs is really well done. And it's this great mixture of kind of like indie, emo, post-hardcore stuff. Like it's just this perfect mixture of all of that.
Cool.
And so you just get this unbelievable songwriting. It's very like emotionally driven lyrically, where they're like the whole album is about a friend's suicide, and so it's just really really well done. But you get a little bit of like you just get really heavy stuff. You get this like very indie stuff, and it's all like well crafted in terms of just the sequencing of it.
You, Justin, you talked about how In Rainbows it has like this weird atmosphere about it that's very kind of its own thing. I think As Cities Burns, Come Now Sleep, and In Rainbows kind of live in this similar liminal space. Like they have their own atmosphere that like you can see it, you don't know what it is, but it's there. It's a very, very strange feeling.
How you even describe it, but you know it when you hear it, kind of thing.
Yeah. Do you think you have a perfect record that you can think of?
Well, I mean, I would put in Rainbows out there, but another one that would be my sixth record I would mention would probably be The Cancer Conspiracy. Have you guys heard them?
No, haven't.
The audio medium. It's a bummer because that record isn't on Spotify. It's another instrumental band, and it's I don't know how to describe it, but keep your eye out for it if you see it anywhere. It's the record's just
they were only
amazing.
around for like a year, it looks like, or a couple of years.
They weren't. Yeah, they were on for a bit. That record, the audio medium, is like outrageous. I vividly remember the first time I heard that record, and I got so angry that someone else made it before I did, because I just heard it and I was like, this is what I want to do with music. And then someone else beat me to it. I was so mad. But now, luckily, uh, the guitar player from that band asked me to play drums on a new project he was doing. So it's another thing that I'm doing called Fixation Arc, and it's Daryl from that band, and he's asked me to play drums. Philip from Caspian is actually playing bass,
Oh,
which is pretty
hell
cool.
yes.
And Jonathan Newby from, oh my God, I can't believe I'm spacing on the name of his band. The funny thing about this is I haven't met him. We have
Oh,
3 songs that are out, and kind of the that's kind of the insanity of making music in this time, is that you can do something like that, where you can be in a band with somebody that you've literally not ever met. And I just met
well,
Phil for the first time
from
at,
Brazil.
yeah,
The
from
band was,
Brazil. Brazil.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I just met Phil from Caspian at a Caspian show in April, I think. And that was the first time I ever talked to him, or like
Sick.
actually met him.
And,
It's
and
just it's just weirdness.
what's the group going to be called again?
It's called Fixation Arc. We do have 3 songs released. They're kind of like um they're metal songs, but they're like, I don't want to say that they're thrash metal, but I'm definitely channeling thrash metal vibes in the drumming. But it's like a unique kind of sort of proggy metal band. It's really cool. It's different. The vocals make it super different, and it's really unique, and it's a cool thing to do. And we're just kind of going song by song. Like we'll just like make a song and put it out, and make another song and put it out, make another song, put it out. So we're just kind of going that way. But it's super fun, and it's like it's just an incredible thing to think about playing music with 2 people that I've just, I mean, basically just been in love with what they've done, and it's some of my favorite music of all time, and
Hell
I get
yeah.
to actually try to collaborate with them on stuff. It's pretty fun.
What a super group. That's like every single one of those bands Mason and I are in love with or interested in. Uh,
Yeah.
I mean, Cancer Conspiracy, I have never heard of them, but I am very, very intrigued after glancing at their Wikipedia here. So I
Yeah,
will
Audio
be,
Medium is the one for me. I mean, all this stuff is great, but that record especially is just nuts. It's just the everything on that, the tones, like all of
yeah.
it. I met I online met Daryl, and I asked him what guitar he used on that record. And this is another stupid thing. Because when I started playing Libica, I was like, well, I want it to sound like that, so I'll just get the guitar that he used. And I definitely did. It doesn't sound anything like it, but whatever.
It's like when you're growing up and you know, you're a guitar, you want to be a guitarist and you see your favorite band, you know, playing like a Jaguar or something like that. And and
Yeah.
those are like the most like temperamental guitars that have ever existed.
They look awesome though. They
They
look
look
so
so
cool.
cool. So cool. But they
I
are
feel like
so
when in Always Sunny, when they start the band and Mac's just sitting there and he's got the guitar and the guy's trying to talk to him, he's like, "Get out of the way," 'cause he wants to see himself in the mirror. I feel like that's how I pretty much got into it.
100%. I love that.
That's great.
That's so cool.
Justin, what do you want to plug? Obviously, the new album for Killswitch is coming out. I just literally I saw the Spotify. It was like 60 days from now or whatever. So I don't know what I have
Oh,
no
is it?
idea.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Something like that. I don't know if
yeah,
is
it's
that
February
February. I don't,
21st.
maybe it's March or something.
February
February
20.
21st.
Okay,
That
there
is
we
the
go.
day. That is the day that that's out. There's that, and like we were talking about the Fixation Arc stuff. Just had our last song maybe just over a month ago. I think our last one came out. There's Libica stuff. Yeah, you can listen to all that stuff. It's all on all the streaming stuff everywhere you listen to whatever you listen to.
Oh yeah. You're a busy dude.
Not really. I feel like I just sit around and pet cats all day, really.
Well, I mean, even when you are working, you're still sitting around. So, you
No,
know,
you're right. You're
yeah,
absolutely right.
it's true. Anything else you'd like to plug?
Plug. Well, I don't know if it's a plug so much, but we talked a little bit about, or I talked a little bit about drumming, kind of being athletic,
Mhm.
and yeah, I was a real big soccer player when I was a kid, and I was just trying to further soccer and further soccer and further soccer, and then kind of got to this point at one point where it was like music or soccer. I was getting these offers from, I don't know if you guys the USL, the
Yeah.
soccer league.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah.
There's a
is
team.
this a High School Musical kind of thing?
No, it was like a real league. It was the Boston Bolts were a team. I used to go see a whole bunch of games with my dad in Boston. Like I grew up in Connecticut, and it was just under 2 hours from there. So that was like our local USL soccer team and everything.
Sure.
I remember having these tryouts. I was a striker because I played throughout high school. We were a pretty good team, and I was getting these tryouts for the Bolts. It was back before soccer was kind of okay in the US, but
Right.
normal people could get a lot farther than any normal person could get now. And I had to make a choice, and I kind of chose music over potential professional athletic career. So I still kind
Dang.
of
Do you kick
I'm
yourself
not
about
sure.
that?
I'm not sure. I'm still not sure if it was the right move.
Oh, I think you've had a pretty long career in music, and I think it's going to keep going.
I hope so. I guess in that sense, I made the right move. There aren't too many soccer players in their late 40s.
That's
A lot of
true.
running.
It's true. I mean, I
Or
like to
athletes in
think,
general.
Yeah.
I like to think to myself that I chose a career over the NFL that, for music journalism.
Linebacker, you were in it?
He was the slot receiver.
Oh, slot. All right. Okay.
I did play in
Small
college,
guys.
so that's got to count towards something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
No, totally. Totally.
And when I say college, like I'm not meaning like I didn't play. I wasn't a backup receiver for Alabama.
That's a good. I hear they have a good football program.
It's not too bad. It's not too bad. Yeah,
They win their fair share of games.
they've done all right. So, well, Justin, thank you so much for chatting more about just your general music career, your time in Killswitch. Obviously, the new album we're just super excited for. It's just a couple more months, and we're going to be hearing all about it. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if at the end of the 2025 year, it's on one of our top 5 albums of the year. It's so good. Just from what we've heard so far, it's so good. So
Yeah.
just really excited, and hopefully at some point, I'm sure you do this kind of thing a lot, but hopefully at some point we get to chat again. I'm just really excited for all the stuff that's coming out from your kind of musical world.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, guys. It's been fun talking to you guys. I can tell we have a lot of musical like-mindedness for sure. I'm excited to
100%.
check out those records that you guys recommended.
Yeah. Likewise.